2020. It's great to be back at Too Many Games. This is my 13th Too Many Games. I think it's came 13 or 14, my first one. Besides the 2020 one that didn't happen. I've been in every one. Thanks for having me back. I love to be back on the East Coast, Pennsylvania. Got the Drake's Cakes out here. Shout out Drake's Cakes. I don't have them in San Diego, that's for sure. You guys find any great deals out there so far? Good for the deals. If you don't know me, my name is Contri. I've been a YouTuber since 2008. One of the OGs. You can see it in my gray hair. I've been goofy Nintendo videos in the past. I've produced the Video Game Years documentary series, the CD podcast, Flea Market Madness, Patent NES book, did I say that? What else have I done? I've done these big books, Old Nintendo Guide to the NES Library, SNES, and N64. And other things. Besides that, I guess I have become over the years somewhat of a gaming historian. Not Norm, the gaming historian. He has that trademark, my pal Norm. But I've been researching more and more some of the history of some of these great games. It goes along with working on the books. So I have a presentation of some research, me and some of my compadres have done, looking into things. Mysteries of the NES, we'll just say, including the NES test launch, which had its 40th anniversary nearly a year ago. And some of that is known, more information is coming out. Former Nintendo employees finally going to conventions, like Bruce Lowry and Gail Tilden, and getting information out there. It's very important that we collect all this information while these folks are still around. In 20, 30 years, these memories might be lost. So that's very important work. I'm trying not to be distracted by that out there, but bear with me, it's like hitting me here and I'm like trying to stay focused. That said, I have some cool information to show you, some stuff that's known, some stuff that's kind of known, and you want to go through it? Are you excited to learn about NES history? I only have 45 minutes. I'm not sure there'll be time for a Q&A. We might have a special guest come up stage for 10 minutes and talk. But let's go, all right? Let's do a PowerPoint. I'm doing a PowerPoint? What the hell? I'm supposed to be lazy. All right. All right. Researching the NES. So, we kind of know about what happened when the NES came out, don't we? They did a test launch. It was successful. They eventually went nationwide. They revitalized the North American console video game market, basically saved the industry that was dead after the crash of 1983. Kind of all know that, right? For the most part, it's kind of like decided history. So I want to go through what some of the actual evidence tells us, like primary research that's important, like facts, things that are written down, things people said back then, things people reported on, numbers, things that aren't opinions. And I feel that with a lot of people online, articles, sometimes things get muddy. It's not really sure who said what first. You see articles, well-meaning articles, maybe regurgitating information from another source, but that other source may not be correct, and then it becomes fact. You know what I mean? Like, it becomes fact over time, and maybe it's not. So we're going to go over the 85 test launch and other mysteries, but a lot of it's going to be the test launch. What the evidence tells us, the dates, details, and retailers, nobody is fully pinned down. Later mysteries, game events, and release dates that Nintendo couldn't keep straight. We'll come back to that image later. Courtesy of James from legendofnes.com. Found that board picture there. And we'll go over the significance about why that's important later. All right, why did they decide upon the New York area? They could have started anywhere. I think originally they thought starting in cities in the South. Hiroshi Yamauchi, the president of Nintendo, said, I want to go big, let's go to New York City. Right? That's it, make your break. Because that's where the success happens. You got the biggest vendors, you got the biggest newspapers, New York Times, you got that. But it wasn't just New York City. It was blanket market of the New York metro area. New York City, Long Island, Westchester, North New Jersey, a lot of New Jersey. Shout out Jersey. Yeah! And into Connecticut, believe it or not, and even down to South Jersey. South Jersey, yay! Tom's River, woo! And how do we know this? Because stores sold these games. They sold the consoles. And how do we know they did? They left behind paper trails if you research. Not just Nintendo's own internal documents saying, hey, what retailers were there at, but newspaper ads, things like that. Hey, where can I buy this new weird, it's not a video game, we'll get to that, can't call it a video game, it's something else. Hundreds of stores across New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut. The number floated by, I believe, Bruce Lowry, VP of Sales, was 500 stores. And when I first heard that last year, when I really started investigating, I'm like, that seems like a very high number, considering the fact that they had about 2 months only to pull this off. To get in, get to the stores, make the connections with the sales folks, the people that ran the stores and the chains, set it up, get out. Because from what Gail Tilden told me, you know, the marketing VP, they were pretty much gone by, you know, early December. They were pretty much done. Her work was done. So they had a very small window of opportunity here. And there's the Hackensack warehouse pictures. A lot of these pictures come from the DICE awards from last year. A lot of these pictures were shot by Bruce Thompson, who was one of the Nintendo employees there on the ground. And without him, we might not have a catalog record of all these things. So at the DICE Awards, they showed a lot of them. Frank Cifaldi's great presentation at Portland last year, he showed some of them from them, and original ones from Bruce Thompson. So this is important stuff to catalog this and get it known before it's lost. Just an empty warehouse. Here's some of the unknown details that are kind of fuzzy, unfortunately. Let's say break into Nintendo headquarters and find their 85 documents, which may not exist. We think the initial shipment to the New York metro area was 100,000 consoles overall. That's what we think. There was a somewhat, this is kind of fuzzy too. This is why I want to talk to Bruce Lowry, because was there a buyback program? Was there a guarantee saying that's part of the pitch, where it's like, hey, Nintendo guarantee you can sell this console, you're not going to get burnt like Nintendo, like Atari burnt you a few years ago. So if you don't sell it, we'll buy it back. Or was it a credit line? It's kind of fuzzy what the agreement was. It might have changed per store between a mom and pop or a smaller regional chain, like Nobody Beats the Wiz or Newmark and Lewis, versus, say, Toys R Us. Like something like Toys R Us probably would just say, hey, we're just going to buy it from you, but if we don't do business again from this, that's on you. So that's where it's not really clear, retailer versus retailer, or what it was, but we do know they had to make some form of concessions to these stores to carry. It's just not 100% clear what they were per store, because there are a lot of different stores. The 500 number I talked about before, that seems unreasonable until I started looking into it, started compiling data, and I got into the low hundreds of locations. And that's where I was kind of surprised. I was like, okay, this was a wider swath than we thought. It wasn't just like New York City and just little North New Jersey. It was a much wider base. So the sell-through is disputed. Nintendo's internal numbers from the internal docs say it was about 51,000 consoles sold in that test launch period, October through December, which would be a little more than half if it was 100,000. But Nintendo reported publicly, like right after January, hey, we did 90,000 consoles sold, which would be like 90%. And obviously that makes them look a lot better, but it's like, how did they measure that at the time? There wasn't like electronic systems to track all that. Did they send out sales reps to report in December? So it's really fuzzy. The internal belief is that it was PR to say, hey, we sold 90% of it, which is like, where did that number come from? That means that it would be sold out most places by the end of December. I personally don't believe that happened. I think it sold a nice chunk, but almost all the stock probably didn't happen. That would have been a much larger store, I think, at the time, with newspapers reporting, hey, Nintendo, this new thing is sold out, and we don't see that. The cartridge total is a little bit closer from the Nintendo's internal documents. It comes out to roughly 135 to 140,000 cartridges sold, which, if you divide that out by, what's a patent on that? Divide that by 15. What is that on here? Let's see. I should add that on the slide. I'll do 135,000 divided by 15 games. It's like 9,000 per 15 black box launch titles sold. That sounds within reason, just because if you tie that to 51,000 consoles would be the math, that's an attach rate of 2.7. And with the history of consoles, that's within reason. You buy a couple of games on your console, maybe 3. You're not gonna buy 5. You're not gonna buy 1 usually. You're not gonna buy 10. So that makes sense. That kind of, but we don't know for sure. Even people that work at Nintendo are like, we don't know. We kind of forgot that. So where did they go? They went to Hackensack. Hackensack, New Jersey. About, what is that, an hour away? Hackensack, a little more. And these are the folks that helped make it happen. This isn't everyone who uses the main players. They had drivers that helped out. They had assistants that helped out. These are the folks that came from the Seattle headquarters and came to help out New Jersey for about 3 months. Some arrived earlier in the summer, like Bruce Lowry arrived earlier to help set up sales with these stores and take needs like Toys R Us, and Woolworth, and Sears. Not all of them were successful. Ron Judy and Al Stone, those were actually the first domestic, I believe. They weren't, okay, they were like not the first and second employees, but they were within the first few. Those are the guys that first imported the arcade cabinets in 08, it's like Radar Scope. Those are the guys that Nintendo first worked with, and they then went on to work with Nintendo and other things. You had Minoru Arakawa, who was the president in America. He would visit, help out, we know that. We had other folks. Gail Tilden was setting up, working with the marketing agency, running the mall tours, Howard Films, you all know, with Power. He was working in the warehouse, doing the shipment stuff, doing store setups, with mall demos. Rob Thompson was helping set up the kiosks and the tech. He ran mall dates as well with Gail Tilden I'll get into. But these are the players. We don't want to remember, we don't want to forget these people. These people helped literally change video game history. And they worked long hours, long days. They were exhausted to make this all happen in literally like a 10-week window or so. Here's the warehouse. They came into Hackensack. A lot of this information is from interviews, but also Game Over, the groundbreaking video game history book from like the early 90s, when the first time they spoke with these folks. And this is just one chapter of that long book. They went to Sega's, Rise and Fall, etc. So they leased the warehouse. They stuff mailed. It was air mailed. The first shipments was Howard Phillips' shipment there on the bottom left. He put that on his Facebook. That was all air mailed to LaGuardia. They trucked it over. They had almost no time to make this happen. From the redesign of the console in the late spring to manufacturing it to getting new cartridges made, we're talking they had like 3 months to do all this. And they get it ready for October. They were under a time crunch to do this. They made it happen. It includes the 7-foot rod displays. Those are the M1 to M4. They're very rare to find them. You might have seen the trapezoidal one that shows the console, the gyromite pieces, the zapper, gyromite duck. Anyone have seen that? Remember Toys R Us? That was part of it. And there was a giant ROM head you could order to put on top, and a pedestal. It's 4 pieces. They're extremely rare. I've never seen the giant ROM head in person. Some people own them. I would love to have one. That's my thing. They looped it around Hurricane Gloria. We know that. There's pictures in the bottom right. Rob took of how deadly flooded it was at the warehouse. So they got set up. There was a base of operations. They received shipments. They did calls to stores. They coordinated there. They did all this stuff at the same time. Bustling. Everyone wearing all hats, they said. Everyone was doing everyone else's job to make it happen. Team effort. This is a mystery that sort of should never have existed, that is pretty much put to bed. I'll reiterate this. There was a time where some folks didn't think Super Mario Bros. Was a launch title. They thought it came sometime later. They weren't sure. But unfortunately, every piece of evidence points to the fact that it didn't come out there, along with the other 16 other black box launch titles. It was advertised that every store that was advertising all the games includes it. You see it there. That's from Consumers Catalog advertising at a very low price of $22.97. There you go. Get in early. Get that little game. It was not the deluxe set at the launch. Some of you may know that. It was just the Nintendo Entertainment System. There was no different console set versus deluxe set. It was all. This is what you get for around 140 bucks. You get your console, your 2 controllers, your zapper, and you get good old Rob, Gyromite, and Duck Hunt. And 2 controllers, I say that, and that's what you got. It wasn't until late summer of '86 when it went fully nationwide, they decided to split it and have the I guess the value pack, just the console. And by that point, they said, you know what, this Super Mario Brothers game, people really love this game. We're going to pack that in. And that was sold for about, I believe, $80, $79.97. And that's what really, I think, blew it up even more. Any questions so far? No? Okay. So this is important. This is part of the research into, when these games are made, when they come out. Someone like James from legendofnes.com has been very good at teaching about board production chips, the program ROM, the character ROM, when the CIC lockout was put in, things like that. So this picture is from the very first run they did of Super Mario Brothers. So what does this tell us? The chips say 8539. What does that stand for? 1985. 39 stands for the week of the year in 85. The 39th week of the year is end of September. So we know that they're making this right before the launch. We know from the other early Ice Climbers, Blue Lands, etc., that these are all made for about late August to late September for the first rush. Keep in mind, this is not the ones that were Famicom boards using an adapter that they had laying around. The reason why stack up, and robot block instead of Gyromite, robot gyro. They just threw the Famicom games in with a little converter. So this tells you that not only did they produce Super Mario Brothers for the launch, they only had 2.5 weeks to get it to Hackensack from Japan. They had to get it, produce it, throw it in the boxes, put a little sticker seal on there, load it up, get the air freight, send it to LaGuardia, that's going to be less than a day. Get it off the truck, bring it into the Hackensack warehouse, get it off put, get their own rental trucks, talk to the stores, and get them out for the first rush. That's like 2.5 weeks doing all that. They were under the crunch to do that. The picture earlier you saw the first shipment. All right, that's what that meant, right? So the marketing. So the crash happened. Atari screwed over a lot of the retailers because they were selling to different retailers at different prices, and they kept undercutting their own retailer partners, competitors, and they ruined the market. We know that. So they wanted to prevent that and not call it a video game cartridge. They didn't want to call it a video game system. So as you know, they called it an entertainment system. What does that mean? Anything you want it to mean. Anything. So we have an example. Toys R Us called it the Video Robot Entertainment System. Okay. Nobody Beats the Wiz called it the Video Robot System. Anything but video game. Anything. This unknown ad that we'll get to later called it Nintendo Robot Video System. So the whole Trojan horse of Rob really is true. That is not a myth. That's how they advertised it. That's how they sold it to retailers. Even though that little poor guy was gone within a couple of years. Like, that's what they did. It's all there. Funny thing, the middle, if you look at the graphic in the middle, why does that Nintendo look weird? Why does that Zapper look weird? That's Nintendo AVS mock-up. That's how they look. That's how it looked at the CES about 4 months earlier, June. And someone sent their own graphics, or Toys R Us used their own graphics on that. They eventually corrected it, but I think that's funny. That's how the original NES would have worked. The ads and the cost. All right, sold as a robot and a light gun, not a video game. We know that. I might have found one ad out of hundreds that said it was a video game. I'm even gaslighting myself. That might not be true. The price across the stores was between 130-ish, sometimes on sale. 160 was MSRP. For some reason, the malls sold it for more money. The mall stores like JCPenney and Bamberger's and Macy's advertised it for more money than the Nobody Beats the Wiz's, the Toys R Us's, and the mom and pops were a bit cheaper. Part of this overhead. The game packs there, I think sometimes you saw them a little bit cheaper. I can go back. But for the most part, we'll say $25 range. Stack Up was always the most expensive. Makes sense. It had the extra hands. It had the 5-colored blocks, circular things you're going to call them. There you go. No deluxe name. All right. Where could you buy one? Well, Toys R Us regionally had it. New York, New Jersey. Newark and Lewis, which was a regional chain back then. Nobody Beats the Wiz, another regional chain. Crazy Eddie. I grew up in these stores. If you're my age, in your 40s, you probably remember some of these stores. Shout out Crazy Eddie. Remember Crazy Eddie? Anyone who used to shop at Newark and Lewis in New York? Remember it? More of a New York thing, but okay. You had department stores, like I said, that had it. Or even the street, Gimbals is not around anymore, are they? Alexander's is not around anymore. And then you had other regional chains like Jersey, like Brick Church Electronics. I had that near me, Jersey. You remember Brick Church? They would sell like appliances. They would sell like TVs, VCRs. They would sell washer and dryer sets, and they would sell you, I guess, a video robot system. They would do that. Not yet at launch. Sears was not carrying 85. They got rejected. Woolworths rejected them. Kmart didn't start, I think, carrying their like 87. So it took a while to get, they were very hesitant. They got burned a few years before this. They were like, we're not selling this junk. What are you doing? So this is one of the mysteries that I personally reached out to the person that wrote an article, a Canadian researcher, that found this in a microfiche from a newspaper, and he forgot where he got it from. He said, I have it somewhere in my research. I emailed the person. I have no idea where this ad is from. I couldn't find it. I thought it was FBO Shorts because it says first New York showing. I'm not positive it's that. I don't know what it is. It's a shame that the article online, you can search for it, didn't have the full ad. So this could have been mid-October, it could have been late, I don't know. But I'm just curious because to this day, we think that, we're pretty confident that FBO Shorts was the first showing around October 18, 1985. But with this something like this, it kind of screws in my head. Maybe it wasn't. What other store was around there at the time? That's what's troubling back. The Brick Church Super Show happened the weekend after the launch weekend. And this has not really been talked about. This sort of lost to history. You don't see it brought up. Brick Church had about, top of my head, 10 to 13 locations, maybe 15, maybe more. They did this super show at Giants at the Meadowlands, Giant Stadium Club, where it was basically like, hey, it's a big expo show, come out, we're going to show off new merchandise and retailers. You can come see TVs and VCRs and photography equipment. But Nintendo seemed to have co-sponsored this in some way because it advertises, come see like the giant video robot. Come see Nintendo's video robot. It's like someone in a suit, like a 5-foot suit, was walking around as a robot. But the people working at Nintendo don't remember this event happening, so I'm not sure if it's a marketing agency that went off on their own that did it. The point is that this was probably barely significant at the time to get the word out. We have zero information on this. We don't have pictures of this event. We have no employee that I've spoken to that remembers this. I tried to post about this online and get someone. Do you know anyone that worked at Brick Church 40 years ago? If so, come talk to me afterwards. Or know anyone that worked at any Brick Church in the area that might have worked this show. This is part of the puzzle. Yeah, chat with Nintendo's 5-foot-tall talking robot. Talking, not the little 9-inch ROM. They got Daryl Dawkins from the Nets, Captain Lou. They had a bunch of celebrities there, and then there you go. So that's the Brick Church part of it, the part of the launch. That's pretty cool. Got 20 minutes left going, jeez. How do people know about the NES? Newspaper store ads. That was a large part of it. They did have the TV ads that you probably seen. Could it be you? First to play Nintendo's video robot and show Rob hatching out of the egg. Again, it's all about Rob. We want Rob. They did that commercial. I believe they shot that commercial in September, And then you can find about 7 or 8 different cut-up versions of that online. There's a full minute version. There's a bunch of 30-second versions of that commercial. Where he's literally hatching out of an egg like an alien. That's how they advertise it back then. The mall tour. I know from speaking to Gail, Gail said we did 4 or 5 weekend mall events, all in November. She was specific about November weekends. Well, I found that they advertised 2 of them. We know at least 2 of the malls where they were at. So there you go. The other one in Northern Jersey, probably Passaic Mall, but we know 2, maybe 3. So they went there, they would set up early Saturday morning, they would demo the console, the people that had their scripts. Gail Tilden went to every one, Howard Phillips or Rob Thompson went to, with her to those as well. One of the others told me, and then the drivers that they hired would help out, set up and break it down. And then the reason they did that, they weren't selling directly to people walking to the mall. They'd probably go, hey, we're outside Macy's, you can buy it right there. We're outside JCPenney, you can buy it right there. They were directing people and probably just getting the word out. But that's not a lot of people that just to advertise for the console. But the New York Knicks were pretty popular in the mid-'80s. So every mall event had either Mookie Wilson, fan favorite, or Ron Darling, the hunky young pitcher, would come out to these events to draw people in. And they did play baseball there. Mookie Wilson brought his son Preston, and for what Gail told me, they were great. They loved it. Preston was great. Ron Darling, maybe didn't care about Nintendo as much. Just came and showed up in his sunglasses and hung out, signed some autographs. Either way, that would guarantee you people would come to see the NES. That's a big part of the story. This was not really revealed to anyone until I basically had to pin down and ask Gail, like, hey Gail, were these Mets players, they're at every event? She said yes. So to me, like, the New York Mets are partially responsible for saving video games. I'll take that. I'm a core Mets fan. They had a media event August 9th that it's not really important in the history, but the big kid syndicated columnist Austin Stovall demoed the NES there. That's pretty cool, right? I think it's cool. There you go. Consumer's Catalog was another big piece of the puzzle that we don't talk about. So Consumer's Catalog, they were headquartered in Canada. Member service merchandise, same sort of deal. You had a big catalog, you can have it mail ordered, or you walk in, here's the part number, they roll it off to the conveyor belt. That's what Consumer Catalog showrooms was. They had a lot of locations in the tri-state area. They had the only basically full ad I ever saw for the NES was Consumers Catalog showrooms. That's all they advertised in the newspaper was that. So this is almost like a lost part of the launch story. It's like, how did they get this deal where you're literally, like, this is main advertising for us. This is like promotion for the console. I didn't see that with any other retailer from the evidence. It was only Consumers Catalog showrooms. That would be a great story to get from Bruce Lowry, VP of Sales. They were gone though by the 90s. Official production dates. Now we're into Switch in general. This is part of the launch of Super Mario Bros. Mystery. Nintendo did not keep track of their production dates versus release dates. It wasn't good. It was sloppy. It wasn't accurate for 80% of their games on the NES up to 1990 or so. How do we know this? Well, there was a trade called Computer Entertainer, newsletter run by the sisters. This video takeout, then became Computer Entertainer. We know because they would call up the companies, be like, hey, what's going on? Is this game out this month? Is it shipping? So they would report because their clients, the people that subscribe, ran like rental stores, ran mom and pop stores. They had to know when these titles were going to be able to come out to advertise and purchase it. That's the best, most accurate data we have, but we also have newspaper ads. So an example of this, a few examples. Zelda 2, Nintendo officially said it came out in December, but you can find ads for it months before from retailers saying that Zelda 2 was available for sale. Maybe in limited quantities, but it was available, right? The other thing is that even on Nintendo's official list, they screwed up their launch titles. They say like Mach Rider and Donkey Kong Jr. They might have changed it by now, but they had an official NES list. They had Mock Rider and Donkey Kong Jr. Man as October 85. Those were the second wave of games in 86, once they started doing more cities like LA, Chicago, etc. So Nintendo just did a bad job with it. So part of the research I've been doing for that and for the book is trying to establish what is actually closer to the launch dates of these NES games. And 90% of the time, the launch date is the month after Nintendo said it, sometimes two. Sometimes a couple months before, but that's rare. So they just did a bad job of that. You do find rental stores getting the games first. I think probably because if they're only doing for the distributor, maybe they have one or two copies, they get mailed, versus trucks delivering them to like Toys R Us warehouses, offloading them to individual stores. So it makes sense that rental stores would get them maybe a couple weeks earlier, a week. You find that a lot looking at this stuff. There's a scalper trying to get in September $110 for a Zelda 2. I just think that's funny. Scumbag scalpers have always existed, apparently. There you go. The same event's Woolworth. So to this day, it's going around sometimes, even these auction houses repeat bad information about the rare games game events. That was only the second Family Fun Fitness Pad title that Bandai put out in '87 after the Pac-In Athletic World. Okay, so this is crazy because once you start looking at ads, you can find the Family Fun Fitness Pad advertised for sale in multiple places throughout the U.S. I think Consumer Catalog had it one year. On top of my head, I'd have to go back and look. But the point is this. It was a peripheral that cost like $80. It was a weird mat pad that really didn't exist before, besides that one Atari thing that no one knows about. And it's a hard sell because you can get an NES with Super Mario Bros. For $80, or you get this weird pad accessory in Athletic World. It didn't sell well, obviously. So what happened with Save Events? Save Events kept getting pushed back. Save Events was advertised at Nintendo Fun Club along with the mat and Athletic World for multiple issues, saying coming soon and then now available. So we know that from the chips that Save Events was manufactured in September of '87. It likely hit the shelves in November based on Computer Entertainer. So we know it came out. We know it was in various locations. They've been found. It's also listed in the Nintendo official Player's Guide. And Nintendo was reported to acquire the mat rights for North America around summer of '88. Then it comes out in the fall. End of story. Same event becomes world-class track meet, etc., etc. There was no recall. There's no evidence of a recall or destruction. None. What big question still exists with the NES? The actual launch date, actually. Saturday is October 18th. Gail has spoken to both of us and said her gut told her that they set up FBO Shorts on a Friday and then went for drinks in the middle of the day. That would have been the 17th. That's just a small thing, but I just think it's funny that no one wrote it down for sure at the time. That's just funny to me. It's like, okay, this is a huge event in the history. You don't really know. It could be Saturday, it could be Friday. The true sell-through, how many big consumers actually get their hands by the end of the year? Was it around 50,000? Was it 90,000? Was it in between? We may never know that. We probably will never know that. The complete stored wall list, we may never know that either. I'm trying my best. I'm compiling a comprehensive list. It has a lot, but not everything. What was the first New York showing? We may never know that either. And how many statements were made? We don't know. I think 1,000, maybe 2. We don't know. It's very rare. You might find a couple out here. That's basically the research I've been doing with others. You need hard research, primary sources, talking to people that were there, stuff written down at the time, not guessing online. That's my presentation that I ran through because I only have like 10 minutes left. Any questions real quick? You like that? Woo! I'm like sweating. I am sweating. I thought I could spend more time doing that. And I have a special guest. I have 10 minutes to ask questions of. Mike, you want to come up? Mike, come on. Mike Etler, everyone. If I get the second mic working, that would be great. Over here for Mike. Second mic for Mike. Mike Etler runs Video Game Connections in Howell, New Jersey. He is known to a lot of collectors. Mike, I don't think he's ever done a convention before like this. Have you, Mike? So, Mike, I have 10 minutes. I wish I had 30. We can spend an hour just with you. You should get down. Mike opened up Video Connections in, I believe, 91. That's one of the earliest known pure, like, retro video game stores that we know of throughout the country. Is this working here? I got you. There we go. So, real quick, Mike, you have like 3 minutes per answer open. Why did you decide to open up a store selling dusty old video games in the early 90s? There was no one else doing it.
So as a collector, there was nobody else doing it. So it really was a personal benefit. I figured I was looking for stuff that other people.
And you decided there's other weirdos out there that wanted old Atari games or NES games that were a few years old?
It wasn't even NES. NES was out at the time, so I mean, when we opened in 91, it was Atari, television, I mean, that was the stuff I was looking for. That was
But the big sellers was that first generation.
yeah.
So how much was a Centipede and cartridge at 91, 92? You remember? It was only $3. I thought those got more expensive in the late 90s once those older guys got a little older. But it did go up though.
Things did eventually start. You gotta realize too, they didn't have eBay, they didn't have price charting, there was no point of reference. So,
Sure.
I mean, you're really just making out the prices people want.
Sure.
That was
So how did I discover Mike Edler? Well, in the mid-90s, like 96, 97, when I'm going to like TSR's NES Archive, and I remember that site, still around. And the fact that you know TSR really blew my mind. Trying to search for like, hey, is there a list of every single NES game that exists out there? Like, is there a resource out there? So then you find like a text file called Mike Edler's Rarity Guide. And you get this text file alphabetically, including some prototypes on there at the time, and unreleased games.
It was a mess.
But you had like years, and from A plus to like F, I believe, of rarity, meaning A was rarer and F was common. And Mike put together, I think, the first known list of a sort of an entire game library.
It was, so we were doing collectors meetings at the store, started those in 95.
Okay.
And early 96, I had a couple of regulars come in. And on Usenet, if anybody remembers that.
News groups, Usenet?
There were Atari 2600s, televisions, and I said, well, does anybody know of any Nintendo? And the first response I got was, that would be there's too much, it's too hard.
Harder than Atari. So there was an Atari list that someone existed at the time.
Yeah.
Okay, there was. So the NES, there was like, it's two out in the wild.
Yeah, it was basically, all the discussion was how difficult it would be to put it together.
Why more difficult than Atari? All get a license game? Because Atari had a lot of license.
Mostly because the Atari stuff, you're talking about stuff that was off the market for 10 years.
They gave people a chance to find it.
Yeah, so here's a system where you're really just coming off the market. And I think a lot of it came down to accessibility. You don't have Nintendo's website to go to pull releases. You don't have eBay to go to look at sold auctions. So it really was a matter of working with a lot of collectors throughout the country. TSR was one of them. I mean, he was at the store a lot. And just really, first it was compiling a list of what existed. Then trying to track down the games that were announced and what existed. It took us probably 6 months before we were comfortable enough to put anything out.
And it was remarkably like 99% accurate. Not the rarities, but like just the list of games. It was great. Well, give him a hand, Brad. That's important work. That's how a lot of us got started. All right, we don't have a ton of time. A couple of things. You were an early retailer of Cheetah too, weren't you?
Yes, one of my favorites. I wish I had picked a couple of those.
I thought you might have some laying around.
I have no idea.
How many? So you went on the forum back then.
No, actually, I got a phone call from a customer.
That's right. Customer told him that, hey, these are for sale.
Yeah, he's like, hey, check this out. It was a Use That post, and it was just some kid in Florida. His father owned a board and chip manufacturer. He says, hey, we've been building these for active enterprises, and we have all this stock, and they no longer exist. They never paid for this. Yeah, they were just offloading this stuff.
And how many do you think you resold from the store?
We went for about 300.
300. It took a while, though, you told me.
Yeah, it was over a year and a half. I mean, the thing was, we kept it in the store. People would come in, it's like, hey, you want to see the worst NES game ever?
They do.
Pop and Cheetah Man too, and say, if you want to take one home, you get $20. And the number of people that looked at it and said, you know what, I'm good.
That's great. How about we talk about something that came up in the slide?
Yes.
Stadium events and the Woolworth myth.
There's a couple things with stadium events in the rarity. For one, the Woolworth in Contri or Ocean County Mall, for whatever reason, those things sat. They were very showcased. So you had stadium events like Liverpool and
So
you just sitting there.
So you told me the story, but what store did you tell me you walked into that they were sitting there?
That was the Woolworths in Ocean County Mall.
You walked into a Woolworth and done how many stadium events do you think at one point?
They were probably just sitting.
Just sit.
Nobody looked
But talking about the 90s.
This is early 90s.
They were still sitting there with the Family Fun Business Band and other stuff.
Oh yeah, it was just, they had that, the store was such a mess, which showcased just crap piled on top of it, bottom corner was all.
So do you think that store was relayed through like, the phone game, the phone tag game, where it became known where, wow, they were looking at Woolworths because you discovered a bunch at Woolworth. Is it possible?
There's so many things that originate with what limited information we had at the time. It's not like, not like anybody walked up and said, hey, these exist in Woolworth because I saw them in Woolworth. We just know that they were there.
You knew they were there for sure.
Where else they were.
Your customers might have known other people, and so the story might have came from there. I mean, a little brain of truth.
Yeah.
You wish you would have bought those extras you saw there?
Oh, no. $30 a piece, I'm glad I left.
They were still $30? They're like 93.
No, they never marked down anything. There actually was something for 22K today, quite only. I don't know if you saw it.
Didn't see that.
Yeah.
Do you have any other quick story? Got a couple of minutes.
I will say this. One thing I've gotten keen over forever was the rarity on
Stadium events.
On stadium events. Now it's twofold. One, because I had seen the game so frequently, it meant nothing to me. Now, two, I also did the whole rarity list was done in Excel. That rarity was changed once to A+. And
But what was the original grade on it?
I think it was a B+, something.
Which means it's like uncommon, but it was very uncommon, but not really rare.
Rare, but not like the social rare stuff. So it was changed to an A+, and the file never got saved that day, and we never went back and looked at it. Yeah, we were more concerned with making sure that we had every title on there and had a general rarity, and the rarity wasn't based on how many pieces were made. It was if you're out looking for a game, what your eyes are on.
Exactly. It was the best you could do at the time. We didn't have access to production numbers.
Yeah.
Well, there you go, Mike. To me, he's a hero of sorts. Without people like this, it was hard to have gotten started collecting in the 90s. People like him, TSR, had to write down the information for us NES collectors, like those guys were targeted. I'm guessing in the late 80s, they started writing it down. So give it up for Mike Etler, everyone. Go to his store, we're going to get connections as well. Thanks so much for coming out, everyone. I'm Pat. I'll be at my booth 412 if you want to come say hi. Enjoy the rest of your 2 minute games, everyone. Hope you learned some fun stuff about the NES.